happening with Ebola. Sir.
Well, thank you for having me on, Alex. And just one point of clarification, that Biological Weapons Anti-Terrorism Act that I did draft is on the Federal Criminal Code. It was passed unanimously, my legislation, by both houses of Congress.
Yes, yes.
And signed into law by President George Bush Sr., a conservative Republican. So it's not as if I'm doing something here at the behest of liberal Democrats. I think, as I've said elsewhere, what we're seeing there in West Africa is a result of the U.S. biosafety level for laboratories, the highest level. We have one in Guinea, one in Liberia, and one in Sierra Leone. And these labs do every type of hideous biological warfare work you could possibly imagine, including DNA genetic engineering on just about every type of agent you can possibly imagine. So it's my opinion that this is where it came from. I'm trying to figure out, precisely what type of agent we're dealing with. Today's New York Times has two variants. One, what looks like some type of hoof and mouth disease that was genetically engineered along with Ebola down at the University of Texas in Galveston. And a second type, this is in the New York Times today, you can read it.
That's right, hidden in plain view. I have the article right here. Just right. Buried this is a product of BioShield, so our bioweapon is bouncing back on us. I'm
afraid this is blowback. The second
unbelievable
bio weapon involved here is the National Institutes of Health. They've always been up to their nose in actually their eyeballs in biological warfare, and the Center for Disease Control. The second agent seems to be a genetically modified organism involving enhanced lethality, Ebola, together with the virus for the common cold.
Oh my God!
And you put the two of them together. Now,
so I mean, you're the author of our biological weapons law. You're a top expert in this. You were access to a lot of classified stuff when you did that work. You're here telling us that you've looked at this. It's hiding in plain view. And we know we have these secret bioweapons labs in Africa. That's what the African scientists are saying. The media has been attacking me for pointing out that South Africa admitted they developed this stuff. That was declassified in the mid-'90s, as you know, with Project Coast. And
the CIA worked with them too, right? That's well known. Yeah.
So you're saying, in your view as an expert, you believe that this is a Western-developed bioweapon crossed with a cold, because the Army's come out. We have the report on Infowars.com today, and said they believe that it will transfer like influenza A in temperatures below 45 degrees and will go airborne this winter.
I think it's been manufactured to be airborne to some extent. Although, for your viewers, I want to make it clear, I have never had access to any type of classified information. I've never had a government security.
Only when you were in Congress working with them, because I read some of the filings on it, it just talked about, I guess, declassified info that you went over with them then.
That's right. Back in those days, everything was in the public record, but pursuant to Freedom of Information Act requests where you could actually get something. But these days you can't get anything, and you just have to read the press and scientific literature very carefully to find out what's going on. Yes, concerning the influenza virus, today the New York Times, I just sent you my comment on that, says that they're going to be testing out 3 types of vaccines over there, the 2 I mentioned, and a third involving the flu. And now, you have to understand, they call it vaccines, but this is simultaneously offensive, defensive work. First, you develop the biological agent itself by means of genetic engineering. In the case of Galveston, it looks like foot and mouth or something, and Ebola, enhanced Ebola. And in the case of NIH and GlaxoSmithKline, it is this what I call Cobola, the common cold, together with the enhanced Ebola. And by the way, it's reported yesterday that in the BBC today, GlaxoSmithKline has been over in Guinea testing this stuff out. And in Mali. Mali just came down with its first case of Ebola reported today. So the third variant then appears to be some type of Ebola, enhanced Ebola, with the flu. So that'd be even more contagious than the other two, if that's what the New York Times says they're going to do this. And we have to understand the weapon comes first, and then the vaccine comes second. So when they say they're testing out vaccines with GMO, that also means they have the weapon. And they very well could be just using the weapon and withholding the vaccines. Oh. The positive point here, though, Alex, is this. It's a fundamental rule of biological warfare that you do not launch a biological warfare attack on anyone unless you have already developed an effective vaccine by use of the same technology. Now, if you read that story I sent you today from the New York Times, which I analyzed carefully, it appears that these vaccines have already been developed at Galveston,
yes,
National Institutes of Health, and have not been developed but produced, but at a small scale. The excuse, well, we couldn't jack it up because Big Pharma wouldn't come in here, that's ridiculous. We spent $79 billion on this stuff since 9/11. And maybe
that's BioShield. That's the BioShield program.
All of everything, all the biowarfare together from 9/11 till now, we've spent $79 billion.
Well, Dr. Boyle, that's what all my listeners have been saying the last month, is that, again, we're not biological weapons experts like you, but we can look at it and say, Ebola's been around for 30-something years in the news. Magically, they've got all these vaccines they say are going to be ready just by the end of the year next year that, lo and behold, basically match what we see popping up in Africa. And the Africans are saying, listen, there's been UN vaccination programs and other things. That's where it's coming from. They're running. They know. And then it goes back to the boldness of the establishment. Why would Obama then and others let it spread everywhere around the U.S. and lie about it and disappear people? We now know that's going on. We just don't know the severity. Then I guess it's to hold the panic till they're ready to roll it out and then pose as saviors. It just seems like such a bold move. I really, this is the most crazy thing I've ever broadcast on. This is overwhelming me psychologically. I don't know what to say, Dr. Boyle. What do you think's happening?
Yeah, it fits the pattern of what happened on September 11, 2001 with the anthrax attacks that we know those were U.S. government agents involved. That was super weapons grade anthrax manufactured at Fort Detrick and Battelle, Dugway Proving Ground. And we know that the entire White House was on Cipro prior to those attacks because they knew the attacks were coming.
That's Associated Press.
Right, that's all over. So my assessment of the situation is that Galveston and NIH already have these vaccines along with the agents, and I suspect our elite have already been administered these vaccines to protect them from the blowback, which is undoubtedly coming. If you look at the New York Times there, they've been working on these vaccines since Ebola was first sent. The WHO, which, by the way, does what the CDC tells them to do, ordered Ebola in 1976 sent to Porton Down, which is the British equivalent of our Fort Detrick.
And that's where they got caught doing all the Mengele experiments on the troops.
Right, and that's their Fort Detrick, and it obviously was sent there for weapons purposes, and then it was sent to CDC. And CDC has always been up to its eyeballs in biological weapons. I have an official government document here establishing that CDC was doing biowarfare work for the Pentagon no later than 1988. And they had to have constructed the lab before that. So CDC is in on this. But they've had all those years from 1977 till now to develop the Ebola as a bioweapon and a vaccine.
And now they magically have it. We're going to go to break.
Hey everybody, Justin Wu Lee coming in. So you may or may not have heard that we have a patent on the Ebola virus. Oh yes, patent numbers, dates, and a laundry list of parameters. And upon reading through a lot of these parameters here, just look at a laundry list of these parameters. They just want to own every single facet of this virus. I have made some disturbing connections reading some of these parameters. For instance, some of what they have laid claim to here is hybrid versions of the Ebola virus that they have created by crossing the genetic codes of the various species. Apparently there's a couple different species of the Ebola virus. They have mapped out their genetic code and created hybrid versions. Now, the interesting connections are here is that the two people that have contracted the virus, our people, by the way, over there in Africa, they are flying here. And the CDC actually admitted that the flight is harmful for people who have Ebola. They said that the stress of the move itself, the basically the characteristics of flying will further damage and cause harm to the victims with the Ebola virus. Now, considering all the different parameters of the patent here, it's clear that they've been playing around with this stuff and studying it for quite some time. And they've been manufacturing hybrid versions, and that would kind of explain why there was this sudden explosion over there in Africa. It would seem that they were trying to manufacture a super killer, a hybridized version that has a several times greater transmission and lethality, considering it broke all of their quarantine procedures and actually got through all their hazmat protection for the two victims involved. This is a first on several accounts here. It's the first that they're bringing the virus into the U.S., so it would seem they have the super killer that they're looking for. And it's the first time that any U.S. Foreign aid over anywhere has contracted the Ebola virus. So it looks like it has the transmission, the lethality, the uncontrollability that they want. Now it's infected the hosts. So now they have their carrier that they want. And they're going to bring them here. And some of the other parameters in here involved developing a stable carrier platform so they have the virus on tap. They want a sustainable source so they can just play with it or administer it or do whatever the heck they want with it, generate vaccines, and we all know how the vaccines are, right? Yeah, I know, right? So, yeah, and the Council on Foreign Relations is knee-deep in this. So you might want to research a couple angles. I highly recommend this here where the CDC openly admits that the flight itself is doing damage to the victims. So the fact that it's a, got to rescue our people kind of thing just flew out the window because they admitted they're killing them essentially. And with all the parameters involving this patent, it is clear that they're responsible for manufacturing the disaster over there due to their little experimentation in Africa. And now they have the super killer that they want. Conveniently all of a sudden it explodes over there, penetrates through all their hazmat procedures, and now they want it. Now they want to bring it here to the CDC where this patent actually stems from. It stems from the CDC facility here in Atlanta where they're bringing these people back to.
An absolute bombshell in regards to Ebola, where it came from, the truth, and oddly enough, and you can be the judge, coincidentally enough, and I don't believe in coincidences, it ties into MH17. The man you're looking at was killed in the MH17 event. This man just so happens to be a world-renowned expert in AIDS and the Ebola virus and was on his way to Australia to deliver a huge speech. He's also a lead spokesman for the World Health Organization and runs the media wing, and they were taking aim at a certain bioweapons facility in Kenema, in Africa. Over what? Ebola. And can you believe that this man, of all ways of dying, it ends up in this MH17 event, this huge mystery? Yes. And I tried to warn you guys. I put the video out and it might have been too soon for everyone. I exposed where this came from. The video's there. I think it's before Ebola caught the attention of everyone. It was right out the gate. This is funded by Bill and Melinda Gates, George Soros and his investment firm, heavily. And they've been dumping money into these bioweapons in this Kenema hospital, in this facility. This is where it began. It didn't happen with patient zero, as the mainstream media would try to make you believe, this 2-year-old boy. It began inside of this research facility, this bioweapons facility, and this man knew it. And he was going to speak on specifics about this, and he never got the chance to do so. Now, he was the coordinator of the media and was involved in investigations that were bringing to light the issues of trial operations of Ebola virus in the laboratory of biological weapons at the hospital in Kenema. Ladies and gentlemen, it's bombshell. Now that workshop is closed. I reported on this. The Sierra Leone government ordered it closed down, and guess who was working with them? The University of Tulane. They were the ones pulling off these experiments. And guess what the experiment consisted of? You just seen it. They had to infect people, get them sick with this new strain in order to test the vaccine to ever know if it was ever going to work anyway. They already did all of this, and it got out of control. They shut this plant down, they tried to sweep it under the rug, and boom, this guy goes missing, dead, MH17 event. And here we have Ebola breaking loose. The man never got to drop the information, and now the stuff is everywhere. You want to talk about big time and coincidental? MH17 and Ebola, these two big stories tied together through one man that was about to drop bombs. Huge information on this. Disappears in MH17. What was he gonna say? I could tell you what he was gonna say, what I'm telling you right now. We're gonna finish the mission. This goes back to a bioweapons lab in Kenema, Africa. Do not forget it. You will not hear the mainstream media speak a word on this. This is the truth. This is the facts. And you know who the backers are. This is horrendous. Reminds me of Phil Snyder when he gave one of his last speeches, said that they tried to kill him on his way to giving that speech. Or one of those speeches. And they eventually did get him. Rest in peace, brother. You're not forgotten. It's a legend. If you don't know who he is, look him up. You might learn something very critical. Glenn Thomas, rest in peace too. All we can do is to continue looking for answers, but now it should be known by all of you. Bill and Melinda Gates, Soros, through the Open Society, all funding these experiments, biological Ebola experiments in this lab and that's where it came from. This is Ground Zero, and they've got it shut down, and Bill Gates has fled Africa on his yacht. That's the truth. Dead men do no talking. As I get more information, I will keep you guys updated and posted as always, but really, this is bombshell. This dude was sniped, taken out in evolved ways in this MH17 mystery. Crazy, man. And I'll never stop wondering what kind of bombshell information this guy was about to drop. They got him. But now you know. Spread this information for real. Those of you that want to download important videos, do it with this. This has been Dabu7. Eyes open.
Six equals 666 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 equals 666.
But recently, a new method has been developed that promises to dramatically improve our ability to edit the DNA of any species, including humans. The CRISPR method is based on a natural system used by bacteria to protect themselves from infection by viruses. When the bacterium detects the presence of virus DNA, it produces two types of short RNA, one of which contains a sequence that matches that of the invading virus. These two RNAs form a complex with a protein called Cas9. Cas9 is a nuclease, a type of enzyme that can cut DNA. When the matching sequence, known as a guide RNA, finds its target within the viral genome, the Cas9 cuts the target DNA, disabling the virus. Over the past few years, researchers studying this system realized that it could be engineered to cut not just viral DNA, but any DNA sequence at a precisely chosen location by changing the guide RNA to match the target. And this can be done not just in a test tube, but also within the nucleus of a living cell. Once inside the nucleus, the resulting complex will lock onto a short sequence known as the PAM. The Cas9 will unzip the DNA and match it to its target RNA. If the match is complete, the Cas9 will use two tiny molecular scissors to cut the DNA. When this happens, the cell tries to repair the cut. But the repair process is error-prone, leading to mutations that can disable the gene, allowing researchers to understand its function. These mutations are random, but sometimes researchers need to be more precise, for example by replacing a mutant gene with a healthy copy. This can be done by adding another piece of DNA that carries the desired sequence. Once the CRISPR system has made a cut, this DNA template can pair up with the cut ends, recombining and replacing the original sequence with the new version.